Vegas, baby. Vegas,
Vegas.
you got some ties all over, bro.
Yeah, I
Las
got some ties
Vegas,
all over.
man.
I need to get to Vegas, but I need to get to a game out there for sure.
Yeah, the Las Vegas Raiders, man, and this team went over a major overhaul this offseason, changes at a lot of key positions. And that's starting up at the top with the head coach, Pete Carroll. You bring in Chip Kelly to help this thing offensively as well. And, both of these guys know the game of football, can put together a run-heavy offense, can put together some structure. And I think this duo is going to surprise people, Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly. We got Chip Kelly, who's known for really running the football at pace. We got Pete Carroll, who's known for the ground and pound with the Seahawks, but also setting up an elite defense over time. Do you trust these guys? Like Chip Kelly's Pete Carroll's kind of old now. You trust these guys to kind of turn things around here for Las Vegas sooner than later, or do you think this is going to be a longer effort than we think?
I think sooner than later, man, they get it going right now. Does that mean playoffs? Not right now,
Yeah.
right? But at the same time, I think that they're definitely going to surprise some people this year. I think that the players that they already had, the Max Crosbys and of the world, I think those guys are hungry, right? Those guys are hungry to win. They're tired of being this doormat. They're tired of being kind of just beat up on, and so they're definitely on the verge of really making a splash.
Yeah, I think it'll happen at some point. I'm not sure it happens this year, but at least what you get now is you start the rebuild process. You bring in some
Mhm.
Band-Aids, you bring in some rookies, some guys that high upside that you can establish as pillars, like Brock Bowers was for this team last year. You go and get Ashton Jeanty in the draft, right? You draft some high upside guys to go around those pillars, and we know Pete Carroll's probably going to be able to build this defense up in a major way very quickly. On the offensive side, though, it starts at the quarterback position. That's typically how you win games. And he goes and gets a guy that he knows he's very familiar with in Seattle, and that's Geno Smith. And Geno Smith has always been disrespected. Obviously, they try to count him out, or what do you say? They try to write me off, but can't write back. He ain't right. I fucked up that whole line, but
Right,
you know what I'm
right.
saying? As far as counting him
Yeah.
out, Geno is a player that we've always done that with. He now goes to the Raiders, coming off of, I would say, an average season with him in Seattle. You think Geno's capable this year in fantasy of being relevant? He's going outside of the top 25 receivers. I wouldn't really draft him in most single QB leagues, but in super flex leagues, Geno could be an option. Maybe he's an option. How are you feeling on him?
You know what? I think Geno's not a guy for fantasy for me, right? I'm not drafting him. I don't want him on my roster. And not because he's not a good quarterback, right? I think he's a good quarterback, but I think he's more of he's a win type of quarterback. I'm going for the win. I'm not going for the stats. He's not going to put up these big numbers. He'll have a win with 150 yards, 175 yards, and may have 2 touchdowns in the mix, but he's more of a game manager to me, right? He's more of a guy that is going to take control of your offense. That's why I see the Raiders being better this year. But at the same time, he's not a guy that's going to come in and throw 400-yard games, 500-yard games, and have those big blowout games. I think that he's going to be a guy that is good off the play action. He's going to be able to get the ball to Ashton, get the offense set up, get him running, get him rolling. But like you said, man, he's just not the big play guy. He's just not the big touchdown guy, the big stat guy, which is not great for fantasy, right? And I like him as a quarterback. I like him as a player, but I see him winning more games for them, not winning more games for me.
Yeah, not winning more games for our fantasy teams, right? It sucks because
Right.
Geno's the player, you want to like him, and I think he was a value last season and even the year before that in Seattle, where you have a DK Metcalf, you got a JSN. It's a little different out here with the Raiders. Your best weapon is your tight end, Brock Bowers. You have an established receiver in Jacoby Myers, but it's not the same as having one of those true elite wide receiver ones. And then with this offense, we just talked about Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll, they're going to focus on the ground game. So I think you're spot on with Geno being a guy that's going to be dink and dunk at times, move the offense downfield, trust in the run game at times. And potentially use his legs at times, but he doesn't offer a whole lot of upside, is what I would say about Geno.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in Superflex, if I absolutely faded the position and maybe I needed a desperation play at quarterback, or maybe I was in desperate need of a backup, potentially. I just don't see a whole lot of upside when it comes to Geno Smith, who's, I think, a good real-life player, maybe in fantasy, he's just not the asset that we probably want him to be for our teams.
Right.
But in the draft, you go and you take a running back early, you use him. Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. Incredible runner, prolific, one of the better prospects we've seen come out of the draft here in recent times. Ashton Jeanty has a lot of expectations with him being the top pick here in the draft for the Raiders, and then coming into a situation where he's got the Marshawn Lynch comparisons with Pete Carroll and the Seahawks. He's getting a lot of the Marshawn Lynch comparisons. He's getting the LaDainian Tomlinson comparisons. There's a lot of comparisons being thrown on this young kid, and he said his goal this year was to hit 1,500 yards rushing and 10 touchdowns, which I think for any rookie would be a crazy season coming in your first year. What do you think about Ashton Jeanty overall? And do you think as a community, it's good to put those expectations of him develop, as a rookie early on? Do you think it's okay to do that? Do you err on the side of caution with that? Do you think he can exceed it? Just talk to me overall about Ashton Jeanty.
You know what? I think it's tough to put those expectations on rookies. I normally don't go big on rookies unless they're different, right? Brock Bowers, I felt like he was different.
Yeah.
Right. You had talked me out of drafting him late. I still regret that. I still regret that decision.
My bad.
Right. I think it took me week 2. I was just like, oh, look at him. I knew it. I should have went with my heart. But, we knew Brock Bowers was different from the start in college. I think he was a 3-time All-American. It was like after his freshman, sophomore year, you're like, wait, this kid's got 2 more years, right? So he was different in college. He's different now. And the thing about Ashton Jeanty, he's different as well. I think that we need a little bit more time for the line to develop, out there in Las Vegas, because one thing about playing running back, you're dependent on the guys around you, yep. Right? Very dependent, right? Now, if his O-line wasn't that good at Boise, he did have the skill at the college level to break all of those tackles, to do those things. I don't see him breaking as many tackles, but I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I see him being a little overrated. I see him being drafted too high in these fantasy drafts. I see him going
first round right now.
Yeah, I see him going in front of Derrick Henry and these guys that are like fully established, and I'm like, man, like don't get too caught up in the Heisman hype. You know what I mean? And here's the thing. I could be wrong. I just don't see it right away. I don't see him taking the league by storm. I think we live in this highlight space, right, where everybody's watching these college highlights and they're seeing this guy run and do these crazy things. But, I don't see him, getting a 25, 30 carries a game, 40, 30, plus carries a game and lasting and really being that guy like that.
Well, they brought in Raheem Mostert too. Like they brought in Raheem Mostert to take the ease off. And I'm not saying Raheem Mostert's like this crazy athletic guy, but like when you talk about Jeanty, it's like you got to hope if you take him in the first round, you got to hope he's Derrick Henry, which is 1,900 yards. You got to hope that he's, up there with some of these other Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, a lot of these established backs. You're like, damn, he better be that good. Otherwise, it's a failed pick. So it seems like you're almost taking him at his ceiling. But I wanted to ask you because, like Boise State, it's one of those things where maybe you're not seeing the best competition. Is that a thing too where, like, that was one of the concerns for a lot of people is that he did his damage most of the time. I'm not saying all the time. Most of the time against inferior competition and not NFL-like competition.
It's definitely is definitely a thing. The level of competition is a real thing, right? I won Defensive Player of the Year out the Mountain West, and I went to the NFL and realized this is a whole different beast, right? These running backs are different, right? These are not Mountain West running backs. He's not going to be going against Mountain West linebackers.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. These guys, these grown men trying to feed their family are different. Right, it's a different level. I think when you play in a SEC, you're a little bit more prepared, right? Those linebackers are a little more NFL ready, right? Those D linemen are a little more NFL ready, and so it is a real thing, right? But with that being said, if you're good, you're good, right? And he's a good running back. I just don't know if he's as great as they think he's going to be off rip,
Yeah.
right? And, I would, if he's going in the first round, for me personally, I'm staying away from it. I want a guy that has done it before, you know, and almost similar to like a guy like Reggie Bush, right? Reggie Bush had the hype. He was the Heisman. He's considered one of the best running backs in the history of college football. Um, and I think that he had a solid NFL career, but he's still disappointed.
Right.
He still wasn't the guy that they thought he was going to be, right? Now, preparing for Reggie Bush in the NFL, he still was a guy that, hey, we need to know where he's at all times, right? And I think Sean Payton did a good job placing him here, putting him in the slot, and finding those packages. And so I think that Jeanty is still going to be a guy that you're going to have to account for.
Yeah.
I just don't see him coming into the NFL and breaking all these tackles and doing all of these things because we haven't seen it on that type of level yet.
Yeah, he's being drafted with like all pros, and you got to put up all pro type numbers. And I'm not saying that it can't happen as a rookie, but it's just tough to bet on as your first pick. The reason why I wouldn't say it can't happen as a rookie is because we saw that out of a pass catcher last year on this team. Brock Bowers had an amazing year last year.
Man.
We talked about it. I don't always take rookies, and a lot of times it takes me a minute to warm up on them because I like to see rookies perform at an NFL level before I invest in them in fantasy. And that was clearly not needed for Brock Bowers. Even though this team drafted Michael Mayer the year before that, they found a way to use Bowers effectively. And right now he's going as a tight end one. He's the number one tight end off the board, second round pick in most leagues, sometimes in the top of the third. But he's getting pricey because a lot of people saw the talent, they saw the usage. He's effectively the wide receiver one on this team, even over Jacoby Myers, who, Jacoby Myers is a wide receiver four. I think we kind of know who he is at this point. But where are you at on Brock Bowers? Do you think that he repeats the season? Is there a sophomore slump in there? Is it the value that's off? Like, talk to me about Brock Bowers.
I see him repeating the season. I see him having another big year. I'm not surprised that he's going one, right? He's definitely in their top three, right? I'm definitely going to try and get him, depending on where my draft spaces are, where I land.
Yeah.
But I don't think he'll make it to my third pick, right? Which, but I think that is warranted, right? He's different. He's been different. He's shown that in college, and then his first opportunity in the NFL, he's shown that, right? He's got that.
What did you see out of him, like out of Brock Bowers on tape? Like, what is it about Brock Bowers that makes him kind of this unique weapon that they could use him at the wide receiver, tight end position?
I think just that, man. It's his overall talent, right? Since he was in, he's a California guy, right? Out of Napa, right? Northern Cali,
yes, sir.
Right? And so I've known about this guy for a long time, and I remember when he first got the Georgia offer, right? I saw him in 7-on-7, right? And one thing that I noticed off rip is he's tight end size with receiver ability, right? And the one thing about the NFL that people don't realize, or maybe they do, right? When you have a guy with speed like that, is you can't touch the tight ends, right? It was one of the biggest issues I had with my transition to the NFL is being able to guard the guys that are so big and still move and they're fast because you can't touch them, right? So if I reroute you past 5 yards, it's a flag on me, right? But you can run full speed into me. You give me a little shoulder, and there's nothing I can do, right? So you got to master these guys. These linebackers are trying to master the quick tug, right? Which is as soon as they're making contact on you, you get a quick tug so you can stay with them. But guys that can run routes fluid like that, and they're big and they're strong, they're almost impossible to cover, right? You put these smaller nickel type guys on them, and the strength is they're not, as long as he's not extending his arm on the push off, right? They're not calling the run into a guy. They're not calling the chicken wing where they can just give you a little shoulder, right? And it's easy for guys that are big and strong to create that space, right? And create that separation. And so when you're able to do that, you got great hands. He's basically your prototypical tight end, receiving tight end that can also block, right? And so he's a coach's dream at the position.
You might have sold me
You
on him,
know,
bud, because I've been kind of like, I don't want to take him that high, but you might have sold me on him because I like Brock Bowers. I hate the draft cost, and that's typically how I do things. I do it based on the value. But Brock Bowers
right.
is one of those players. I'm like, he's elite, and it's tough to pass on elite at the tight end position because a lot of times that can be the difference between your team winning and losing like a championship.
It can definitely, because you know that when you have an elite tight end, he separates himself, right? So that's a position you're like, yo, I can win this position every week. You know what I mean? And so a lot of times for me, I like to get two big running backs because it's like, yo, if I win at the running back position every week, it sets me apart. Right now, if I'm winning at the running back position and the tight end position, now I got a double advantage. And so, like I'm in a similar boat to you. He might be too high for sure for me to take in that first round, right? I'm, just with the tight ends in general, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, he's good, but I don't know if I'm doing that to myself. But at the same time, if there is a tight end that you want to jump on, I think that's him. But I think there's a few more in that 2 to 5
Yeah.
range.
Yeah, like
You know what I
McBride
mean?
and Kittle are like kind of right there with
Right,
him.
right. I
It's
see
tough.
those, I see those guys in the 2 to 5 range that I can get around that third or fourth round, maybe even fifth round, that I would take ahead of those guys. But he's definitely up there, man. I think that he's he's a
Yeah, he's there, bro.
he's a guy.
They got all these weapons. We talk about Ashton Jeanty, Brock Bowers, changing coaches and everything. The win total, 6.5 wins for the Raiders. And that's a low number. You kind of expect that in a rebuild year for them. How you feel about the Raiders? Because I think this Raider team, they would probably like a higher end pick. I'm just
I'm
not sure
ta-
how it
I'm
works out.
taking I'm taking the over.
Over.
I'm taking the
Let's
over.
go.
6.5. The thing is, here's the thing. They were terrible last year, right? They were terrible with 4 wins. I think the new energy, the new quarterback, the new running back, um, the new offensive coordinator, I think all of those pieces. Now, like I said, I don't think that puts them in the playoffs, right? I think they got a tough division, but they are going to surprise some people. I see them being around a 500 type team. I see them around 7, 8 games that they will win. And so, I see them like 500s type of team, surprising some folks, but I'm definitely taking six win. I'm taking 7, 8 wins. I got the Raiders on the over.
I'm on the complete opposite side of this, man. Just
Okay.
I don't think the defense. I know you got your boy Max Crosby there, and it's like I want to
Mhm.
like this Raider team, but I feel like there's a lot of good football teams in it right now. And I kind of feel like if the Raiders are going to do, like the thing is, they're set up to win. Like you get the coaching staff that you get the quarterback that you start
Mhm.
investing at heavy positions offensively. Like they're set up for it, but I think they're also set up to like probably take a quarterback next year, very early in the draft at the top 5 spot. So I
Yeah.
kind of think that if I'm the Raiders and I'm wanting to change the franchise and sell tickets, like Geno's a good Band-Aid solution, but I think you're invested in like, hey, let's get a top end quarterback next year. I think they're going to be competitive, and I think this team is probably better than advertised. And you're probably right as far as it being like the ability to win any game. I just see them being more of like a team that when things get close, you play the Chiefs and they're close, they probably lose. It's the Broncos and it's close, they probably lose. If it's the Chargers and it's close, they probably lose. And so more often than not, if you're losing those tough games, that's where I see this thing kind of fizzling
Mhm.
out for them. But 6.5, that's a good number, I think, for the Raiders.
Right. Yeah. I think, it's definitely, they're going to be right there in that space.
So let us know what you guys think about the Raiders in the comments. You on Marcus's side, you think this is probably going to be a little bit of a better season, or you on my side, you think it's going to be kind of a lower season for the Raiders? Let us know your guys' thoughts in the comments. Until the next one, we will see you guys later. Peace out.